Hello and welcome to my new channel. This is my first time going by the name Dr. Scientist, which is a funny name I came up with earlier this week. Actually, I came up with the name Dr. Science, but I looked that up to see if anyone else was already using it and found that there was something called Ask Dr. Science, and apparently it's not around much anymore, but or not being used as much. But I figured it's safer to go with the Dr. Scientist. I couldn't find anyone going by that name, and it's still pretty much the same thing, just one syllable longer. So, this is an introduction to me, but let's get to the title and where that came from and why I've decided to use it, aside from the fact that it sounds funny and I enjoy it. Makes me laugh. And so, there will be some who believe that I do not deserve this name or title. They'll say, "You're not a doctor." They have a very limited definition of what a doctor is, and they probably don't know the etymology of that word. Even if you go by the standard common definition that a doctor is someone who studies the human body and knows, medicine and treatments and causes for diseases and healings, then I'm still that too. In my own research, I have learned things that many doctors have never learned, and they do not teach in many mainstream schools. I actually dated a mainstream, definition of a doctor for a few years, and I learned firsthand what they are taught and not taught. And it just goes to show you that it doesn't matter what you're called, you can learn anything if you put your mind and will and attention and focus and effort into it. So same thing with scientist. If someone says, I'm not a scientist because I don't wear a white coat and I don't work in a lab or whatever. Again, it's a relative definition, but even if you mean someone who does research and experiments, I've done those too. I do quite a lot of research, actually. I've learned quite a bit, and I have learned in many of my studies that there are some very famous scientists that aren't exactly right about a lot of the things that they think they are. They're right according to their information and their perspectives, but we all have more to learn. And that's what I'm constantly doing and constantly sharing what I learned. We learn/teach and teach/learn. Some will say, "Oh, you don't act like a scientist." What, do they all have to act the same? Do they all have to act super serious and just sucking the fun out of learning and science? To me, that seems like a negative thing, like to always be super serious and not have any fun. Who wants that? As I see it, that actually dissuades people from learning and research and experimenting. So let's get to the etymology of these words. So you'll have a better idea both about me and why I chose this name. Both the word doctor and scientist come from Latin words. They are of Latin origin. Doctor, roughly translated, actually does not just mean someone who is interested in biology and medicine. It had a much more simple and broad definition originally, just meaning teacher. So, and again, there will be some who say, well, you're not a teacher either because you're not getting paid for it. You're not doing it for some institution. Again, broaden your definition. I'm here to help. This is what I'm helping with. One of the many things I study is words and etymology and language. So that's one of the things I'm doing here. So that's what I'm doing is teaching. So you can't say I'm not a teacher. Second word, scientist, comes from the Latin scientia, which generally speaking just means knowledge or wisdom, something along those lines. It did not mean you have to work in a lab wearing a white coat. You'll notice I'm not wearing a white coat. Not all scientists wear white coats. That's a broad definition of that. I have done experiments. I've done, water experiments, and which we'll get into. I'll get into my experiments and measurements with water quality and different devices used to measure that. We'll get into all different subjects. That's really, what I study. I study anything that interests me at any given moment. I call it free search sometimes. And I find it really the best way to learn. And really kind of that's what everyone does to different degrees. Some people are just more focused on certain areas than others at any given time. But because everything is related and interrelated, interconnected, you really study multiple things. Uh, so everyone has, depth of knowledge in many different subjects. Just kind of it varies in their scope and breadth. So yeah, I like to call myself an omniologist, is a fancy word, or a generalist rather than a specialist. So an omniologist basically means someone who studies everything. It really broadens your perspective and your understanding of different things, of everything, really, yourself and everything else. A lot of schools don't really teach as much or as best knowledge as they can. That's an interesting recurring thought I've had, is that if you think about it, schools don't really give you a promise that they are going to teach you the best, most accurate information possible. They don't have you sign a contract saying, well, if you discover that we have been lying to you, then you get your money back. They don't do that, obviously. So it's interesting how that's kind of a presumption that people have, that they're going to get the best knowledge and information, but that doesn't happen. As I've come to learn through my own research, that I would consider a lot of what I learned to be lies, misinformation, propaganda. But you don't necessarily know that until you learn new things that make it seem that way. Otherwise, you just accept it as, oh, okay, well, this is the way it is. But if you all of a sudden learn something different that makes that seem like, wait a second, that's not accurate at all, and that's not really the way things are. So there's unfortunately a lot of that in schools. Even again, the big, famous, expensive schools. Just because you're paying a lot of money doesn't mean you're necessarily getting what you pay for. I had a very common upbringing in terms of schooling. I went through, preschool, kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, and yet all of the things I've learned after college, I consider much more important and relevant and accurate and just better than anything I was ever taught in school. Not to denigrate the entire school experience, I appreciate there's camaraderie and community involved in that. There's making connections with other people, groups and hobbies and after school activities. I get that it's very formative experience, but if you think about it, it really doesn't take years and years and years and years to teach someone something or to learn something. It's kind of social programming. You could call it brainwashing. It takes that long to program someone to think a certain way. And, I've basically spent a lot of my years since school unlearning what I've learned. And that can be a real challenge since, people think that they already know everything that they need. And that's kind of the illusion that school gives you, is that here's a diploma. You know everything that there is to know about this subject. No, that's never the case. It's a degree. You know a degree about that subject. That's why they call it a degree. You know a certain amount of it, and according to someone, that's enough for you to get a piece of paper or a title or a job. But there's always more to learn. There's always more to know. None of us is ever done learning. And again, people's jobs, you'd be surprised. You would think that, some person in a particular profession may know a lot about a certain subject, and they may, but that doesn't mean they know everything about it, and that doesn't mean that you can't know things that they don't know about it. So, because again, that's what's happened with me. I've learned things that clearly other professionals in these, that have been in these fields for their whole lives haven't learned yet. It's not to brag, it's just to share with you and to show you that you can learn anything and everything. It's up to you. It's whatever's most relevant to you. You can't know everything, but you can know everything that you need to know when you need to know it. So we'll be getting into some of my favorite scientists and doctors. But again, these words are, sort of loose. In a sense, everyone's just playing with different archetypes and themes. You could say we're all doctors and scientists to different degrees, depending on your definition, in terms of, our knowledge of different subjects. We all have different perspectives and beliefs and information. So, that's part of the vast tapestry and richness of creation. And it's to be embraced and accepted, not, vilified and fought against. Oh no, everyone's got to think the same way and see things exactly the same. That'll never happen. So let go of that. I'll be sharing things that some would consider very controversial and false lies, whatever. Obviously, that's not the way I see it. My intention has never been to lie to anyone. I only have the intention to tell the truth, my best information and sources. And that's constantly changing. I'm constantly learning new sources all the time and new information, constantly updating my perspective and beliefs. So that's what I'm going to share here. Again, every different topic, health and history and technology, biology. That's what I study. And so that's what I'll be sharing. That's all any of us can really do is share the information we have. And you can't share what you don't have, right? So, and language itself we'll talk about. And again, relative definitions, relativity as well as proposed by Einstein, and semantics is sort of a word meaning relative definitions, but yeah, language can really only tell you so much. This is a stream of information coming out of my mouth, which some people will be able to understand, others won't. Some people will agree with, and others won't. So to different degrees. So this is what I'm capable of at the moment. This technology is helping to spread my information and share it with others. So thank you, technology. I'll try to be as enlightening as possible. And as one of my favorite guides and teachers says, the first step to enlightenment is to lighten up. So, don't take yourself or anything else too seriously. Where's the fun in that, right? I know that's very built into people's language. You got to be, I'm serious about this, and you're in a serious relationship, but that's not as much fun, literally, by definition. You want to have more fun in life, right? So I'll be much less serious than a lot of other scientists with their white coats and glasses and pocket protectors and all that. That's not me. There are different kinds of scientists and doctors and people out there. So I understand that I'm not for everyone. Nothing and no one is. You have your guides and teachers, and I have mine, and whoever you have works for you, and that's fine. That's the way it is. Not everybody likes eating or doing the same things all the time, and we change as well. Maybe you won't like one thing I say or topic I'm talking about, but you'll agree with me on others. That's just the way it is. That's fine. So this is just my attempt to be of service to others, and in a humorous way, because again, I find the title funny, Dr. Scientist. So if you don't like it, that's fine. But if anyone has a problem with it, direct them back to this video, and it'll be an explanation of why I'm using this name. And no, I don't have a degree from somewhere saying that. But the thing about degrees is that's someone else telling you what you need to know, or what they think you need to know, or that you know enough of what they think. But if you really think about it, no one else can tell you what you know. So I really don't care about degree or a title or anything like that someone else has. We all know different things, and we have different levels of knowledge, and I don't need anyone else to tell me what I've learned. Some of that, as I see it, is a sort of negative limitation that you need to have a certain title or degree from somewhere to tell you that you're qualified to talk about something. I've learned a lot on my own that they do not teach in many schools, even the biggest, most expensive, most famous schools. Some of this stuff that I will be sharing has intentionally been kept out of them by different private interests and industries for their, profit, basically. They don't want people to have access and information about certain things that they don't control, or that, they can't profit from. So, but I've made no such agreements, and I have learned things that they haven't, that I am free to share with all. If you don't believe it, that's fine. That's up to you. But I've done research on everything that I'll be sharing. And yeah, so if you don't like it, you find other channels. That's fine. There are plenty others out there for you. This is a good introduction for now. You'll get to know me more as this goes on, and you'll get to know more about everything else as well. And again, some people already know some of this stuff, and that's fine. That's good. I've learned this stuff from other people. I'm passing it along to others. Those who already know this will be reinforced and re-energized that, oh, good, there's someone else who knows it and is sharing it with others. So we're all a team here, and yeah, we're all helping serve one another. So for now, that's a good start, and look forward to seeing you in the future, or the now, which is all there really is, infinite now. We'll be talking about time, space, space-time, all of it. I'm excited to start a new journey and channel here, and I hope you'll join me. Please like and subscribe, share it with others, and here we go.